The warning sirens screamed across every continent on Earth. In the dark void above the planet, 40 massive warships appeared out of nowhere. They were huge, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls were covered in strange symbols that glowed with a sickly green light. The ships belonged to the Velcrid Empire, and they had come to conquer Earth. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the orbital station Citadel 7, watching the alien fleet move into position. She was a tall woman with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but her hands gripped the railing in front of her so hard that her knuckles turned white. She had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Fleet, and she knew what was coming. "Get me a count," she said to her tactical officer. 40 ships, Admiral. All of them bigger than anything we have. They're broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. It had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern, gray skin stretched tight over a skull-like face, and a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. The creature wore armor that looked like it was made from black metal and bone. "I am Commander Thexril of the Velcrid Empire," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer, but there was still a cruel edge to every word. "Your planet now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy every city on your world. You have 1 hour to decide." The screen went dark. Jiwan looked around at her crew. Some of them were young, barely out of the academy. Others had families waiting for them back on Earth. All of them looked scared, but none of them looked like they wanted to give up. "Send a message to President Hyun-sik," Jiwan said quietly. "Tell him we're ready to fight." Down on Earth in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, President Hyun-sik sat at a long table with his military advisors. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been president for 6 years, and he had hoped to retire soon. Now he might be the last president Earth ever had. General Minho sat to his right. The general was a big man with broad shoulders and a face like carved stone. He had fought in 3 wars before the aliens came, and he had never lost a battle, but now he looked worried. "We have 23 cruisers and destroyers," Minho said. "They have 40 ships, and each one is more powerful than anything we've got. If we fight them head-on, we'll lose most of our fleet in the first hour." Fleet Captain Sora spoke up from the other side of the table. She was younger than the others, with long dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "We can't just surrender. If we give up now, they'll enslave everyone on the planet. We've seen the reports from other worlds they've conquered. They don't treat prisoners well." President Hyun-sik rubbed his temples. His head hurt, and his heart felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Is there any way we can win this?" The door at the far end of the bunker opened, and a woman in a white lab coat walked in. Dr. Unji was the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research Division. She was small and thin, with glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She carried a tablet computer under her arm. "Mr. President," she said, "there might be a way, but you're not going to like it." Everyone turned to look at her. Hyun-sik gestured for her to continue. "We need to let them think they've won," Unji said. She tapped her tablet and brought up a holographic display that showed the solar system. "Our fleet fights them, but we make it look like we're trying our best and losing. We retreat to the outer system. They'll think we're beaten, and they'll land occupation forces on Earth. That's when we hit them with everything we've really got." "What do you mean, everything we've really got?" General Minho asked. Yoonji smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been keeping a very big secret. "We've been preparing for this day for 30 years. Project Reckoning. The weapons we've shown the galaxy are just the ones we wanted them to see. The real weapons are hidden, waiting." She expanded the hologram, and suddenly everyone in the room could see what she was talking about. Hidden military satellites, secret shipyards in the asteroid belt, weapons that could crack open a planet's crust or tear apart a starship from the inside out. It was enough firepower to fight a war against an empire. President Hyun-sik stared at the display for a long moment. Then he looked at Admiral Jiwan's face on the video screen. "Can you make it look convincing?" Jiwan nodded. "We'll put on a good show. But sir, a lot of good people are going to die in the first battle, and if this plan doesn't work, we'll have nothing left to fight with." "I know," Hyun-sik said quietly. "But if we don't try, we've already lost. Give the order, Admiral. Let's show these bastards how humans fight." 6 hours later, the Battle of Earth began. Admiral Jiwan led her fleet out to meet the Velcrid warships. The human cruisers were fast and maneuverable, darting between the massive alien vessels and firing everything they had. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Commander Thexral watched from his flagship and laughed. The humans were brave, he would give them that. But bravery meant nothing against superior firepower. His ships tore through the Earth fleet like a knife through paper. One by one, the human ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. When it was over, only 12 human ships remained. They fled toward the outer system, their engines burning bright as they ran away. Thexral ordered his fleet to pursue them for a while, destroying 2 more ships just to make his point. Then he called them back. The humans are broken, he announced to his crew. Begin landing operations. This world is ours. The Velcrid ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They landed in major cities around the world. In Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, and dozens of other places. The alien soldiers marched out of their ships and took control. They rounded up human officials and put them in prison camps. They took over the government buildings and raised their empire's flag above them. Thexral made his headquarters in Seoul, in a building that had once been the center of Earth's planetary defense network. He sat in the commander's chair and sent a message back to the Velcrid High Council. Earth is conquered, he said. The humans put up a fight, but it was pathetic. I request permission to move on to the next target system. This was too easy. Far away in the darkness beyond Neptune, Admiral Jiwan watched the alien broadcasts on her screen. Her remaining ships were hidden in the Kuiper Belt, among billions of icy rocks that drifted through space. The aliens had stopped looking for them. They thought the war was over. How long until we're ready? She asked. Her tactical officer checked his console. Dr. Yunji says 3 weeks. She needs time to position all the satellites and bring the hidden fleet online. 3 weeks, Jiwan repeated. She watched the aliens celebrating on Earth and felt a cold anger building in her chest. Tell everyone to be patient. Tell them to remember every person we lost today, because in 3 weeks we're going to make the Velcrid regret they ever heard of Earth. She turned away from the screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the real war was about to begin. 3 weeks passed slowly on occupied Earth. The Velcrid soldiers walked through the streets like they owned the planet because they did. They forced humans to work in mines and factories, digging up resources to send back to the Velcrid Empire. Anyone who refused was beaten or killed. The aliens didn't care about human lives. To them, people from Earth were just animals that could talk. Commander Thexral grew bored. He had expected the humans to keep fighting, to launch desperate attacks that he could crush. But there was nothing. No resistance, no rebellion. Just millions of scared people doing what they were told. He spent his days sending reports back to the Velcrid High Council, telling them how easy the conquest had been. These humans are weak, he said in his latest transmission. I recommend we move the main fleet to the Andros system. There's no need to keep so many ships here. A small garrison force can control the entire planet. But Thexral was wrong. The humans were far from beaten. They were just waiting. In a tunnel system beneath the ruins of Tokyo, Captain Deho checked his equipment one more time. He was a special forces soldier, trained to fight in situations where normal armies couldn't operate. His face was covered in dirt and his uniform was torn, but his eyes were clear and focused. Around him, 20 other soldiers prepared their weapons in silence. Lieutenant Yuna sat at a computer terminal nearby, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She was an expert in alien technology, and she had spent the last 3 weeks studying every piece of Velcrid equipment she could find. Now she was breaking into their communication network one line of code at a time. I'm in, she whispered. I can see their patrol routes, their shift changes, everything. They're not even encrypting their internal messages properly. They think we're too stupid to hack their systems. Deho allowed himself a small smile. Good. That means they won't see us coming. Sergeant Tajin, a big man with scarred hands and a talent for explosives, finished wiring up a pile of charges. I've got enough here to take down their entire supply depot. When this goes off, they'll feel it 3 blocks away. All across Earth, similar scenes were playing out. In bunkers beneath London, soldiers cleaned their rifles and loaded magazines. Under the streets of Mumbai, engineers assembled mobile missile launchers that could be fired and moved before the enemy could respond. In the tunnels beneath New York, hundreds of fighters waited for the signal to strike. The resistance had been organized from the very beginning. When the Velcrid landed, some soldiers had fought and died, but many more had simply hidden their weapons and pretended to surrender. They had gone into the tunnels, the sewers, the abandoned subway stations that ran beneath every major city. There they waited, building their strength. learning about the enemy. And now, after 3 weeks of silence, they were ready to fight back. Deep in space on a hidden asteroid base, Dr. Yunji stood in front of a massive holographic display. The display showed Earth and all the space around it. Tiny green dots marked the positions of the Velcrid warships. Red dots showed human weapons that the aliens didn't know existed. There were a lot of red dots. "Status report," Yunji said to her team. A young technician spoke up. "All railgun satellites are online and charged. We have 247 of them positioned around the planet. Each one can fire a tungsten rod at 0.15 the speed of light." Another technician continued. "Quantum disruption mines are in position throughout the solar system. When we activate them, any Velcrid ship trying to jump to faster than light speed will have their engines shut down. They'll be stranded." "And the Prometheus fleet?" Yunji asked. Admiral Jiwon's face appeared on a smaller screen. She was on the bridge of the Indomitable, the flagship of humanity's secret fleet. Behind her, through the windows, 15 massive warships hung in space like sleeping giants. These weren't the small cruisers that had fought and lost 3 weeks ago. These were dreadnoughts, built over 30 years in secret shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt. Each one was designed to fight ships much larger than itself. "The fleet is ready," Jiwon said. "We've been running simulations for 2 weeks. My crews know their jobs. When you give the word, we'll jump in and hit them hard." Yunji nodded. "General Minho, what's the status of the ground forces?" The general appeared on another screen. He was in a command bunker somewhere beneath the Pacific Ocean. "Every resistance cell is in position. We're ready to move on your signal. The Velcrid have patrols in every major city, but we've been tracking their movements. We know exactly where they'll be when we strike." President Hyunsik, watching from his own bunker, spoke for the first time. "Dr. Yunji, are you certain this will work?" "If we fail, we won't get another chance." Yunji pushed her glasses up on her nose. "Mr. President, we're going to hit them with everything at once. Space-based weapons, ground attacks, and our hidden fleet. They'll be overwhelmed. They came here expecting to fight primitives with simple weapons. They have no idea what we're really capable of." There was a long silence. Then Hyunsik nodded. "Very well. Give the order. Let's take our planet back." Yunji took a deep breath. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks she had watched the Velcrid strut around Earth like they owned it. Now it was time to teach them a lesson they would never forget. "All units," she said into her communicator, "execute Operation Earthfall. I repeat, execute Operation Earthfall. Attack now." All across Earth and throughout the solar system, the counterattack began. The railgun satellites fired first. They were small devices, no bigger than a car, hidden among the thousands of civilian satellites that orbited Earth. The Velcrid had ignored them because they looked harmless. But each one contained a powerful magnetic accelerator and a solid tungsten rod. When they fired, the rods shot toward Earth at incredible speed. The Velcrid had no warning. One moment their bases were quiet and secure. The next moment, tungsten rods traveling at 15% of light speed slammed into them from above. The impact was like getting hit by a nuclear bomb, but without the radiation. Buildings exploded. Armor melted. Soldiers died before they even knew they were under attack. In Seoul, Thexrol's headquarters took a direct hit. The entire building collapsed in a cloud of dust and fire. Thexrol survived only because he had been in a basement level, inspecting captured human technology. He crawled out of the rubble, bleeding and burned, and stared up at the sky in shock. "What's happening?" he screamed into his communicator. "Report, all ships, report." The reports that came back were all bad. The Velcrid had 12 cruisers in low orbit around Earth. 8 of them had been hit by the railgun satellites in the first 30 seconds. 4 were destroyed completely. The other 4 were crippled, their shields down and their engines failing. The remaining 4 ships tried to pull back to higher orbit, but they were too slow. That's when the resistance attacked on the ground. Captain Daeho's team hit a Velcrid supply depot in Tokyo, using the explosives that Sergeant Tajin had prepared. The blast destroyed 3 months' worth of ammunition and supplies. Lieutenant Yuna used her access to the Velcrid network to send false orders to their patrols, directing them into ambushes. All over the world, similar attacks happened at the same moment. Bridges exploded. Power stations were sabotaged. Velcrid soldiers found themselves surrounded by humans with guns who appeared out of nowhere. The aliens had thought they were safe, that the humans were defeated. They were wrong. In space, the quantum disruption mines activated. These were special devices that Dr. Yunji had invented, placed throughout the solar system over the last 3 weeks. When they turned on, they created fields that made faster-than-light travel impossible. Any Velcrid ship that tried to jump away would find its engines simply wouldn't work. They were trapped. The Velcrid fleet tried to regroup. They had 21 ships that were still functional, and they moved to form a defensive position around Earth. Their commander sent an emergency message back to the Velcrid Empire, but with the FTL disruption, the message would take weeks to arrive. That's when Admiral Jiwan attacked. The Prometheus fleet jumped in from the edge of the solar system, appearing behind the Velcrid formation. The 15 human dreadnoughts were smaller than the Velcrid cruisers, but they hit harder. Their railguns fired tungsten slugs the size of buses. Their plasma lances could cut through armor like a hot knife through butter. Fleet Captain Sora, commanding the dreadnought Retribution, led the first attack run. Her ship dove past a Velcrid cruiser firing all weapons. The alien ship's shields flickered and died. Its hull split open, spilling air and bodies into space. The battle raged for hours. But this time the humans weren't retreating. This time they were winning. The battle in Earth's orbit was brutal and chaotic. Admiral Jiwan watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as her fleet tore into the Velcrid ships. The aliens were trying to organize a defense, but they were confused and scared. They had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. Now they were fighting for their lives. Target the cruiser on the left, Jiwan ordered. Full railgun barrage, then swing around and hit them with the plasma lances. Her weapons officer nodded and pressed the firing controls. The Indomitable shuddered as its main guns fired. 6 tungsten slugs, each one the size of a car, shot across space and slammed into the Velcrid cruiser. The alien ship's shields held for a moment, then collapsed. The slugs punched through the hull and the cruiser began to break apart. Fleet Captain Sora's voice came through the communicator. Admiral, we've destroyed 4 more enemy ships. They're trying to retreat to the far side of the moon, but we're faster than they are. Stay on them, G1 replied. Don't give them a chance to regroup. The Prometheus fleet had been designed for exactly this kind of fight. Human engineers had studied Velcrid technology for years, ever since the first contact between humans and aliens. They knew the weaknesses in Velcrid shields. They knew how Velcrid ships moved and fought. The dreadnoughts were built to exploit every single weakness. Velcrid ships were big and powerful, but they were slow. They relied on heavy armor and shields to protect them. Human ships were smaller and faster. They could dodge and weave, hitting the enemy from unexpected angles. The Velcrid fought like ancient warriors, standing in line and trading blows. Humans fought like sharks, circling and striking where the enemy was weakest. Commander Thexral, still on the ground in Seoul, watched the battle through what was left of his command center's systems. His fleet was losing badly. He had started with 40 ships. Now he had maybe 15 that were still combat-ready, and they were being picked apart one by one. This is impossible, he muttered. How do they have ships like this? Where did they come from? His second-in-command, a younger Velcrid officer named Vexthar, pointed at the tactical display. Commander, we need to order a retreat. If we stay here, we'll lose everything. Thexral wanted to argue, but he knew Vexthar was right. He opened a channel to his remaining ships. All vessels retreat to high orbit. We'll regroup, and he never finished the sentence. A railgun satellite that had survived the first wave of fighting locked onto his position and fired. The tungsten rod came down like the fist of an angry god. The entire block around Thexral's command center vanished in a flash of light and heat. This time, the Velcrid commander didn't survive. On the ground, the liberation of Earth continued. Captain Deho and his team moved through the ruins of Tokyo, hunting down the remaining Velcrid soldiers. The aliens were good fighters, tough and well-trained, but they had been bred to conquer less advanced species. They weren't ready for humans who fought dirty. Deho's squad used the tunnels beneath the city to move unseen. They would pop up behind a Velcrid patrol, hit them with everything they had, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Lieutenant Yuna continued to hack the Velcrid communication network, feeding them false information and sending their troops to the wrong places. There's a supply convoy heading down Shibuya Avenue, Yuna said, looking at her portable computer. 6 transport trucks with minimal guards. They think the route is secure. Deho grinned. Sergeant Tajin, how much explosive do you have left? The big man patted a bag at his side. Enough to make sure those trucks never reach their destination. They set the trap quickly. Tajin placed charges under the street where the convoy would pass. The other soldiers took positions in the buildings on either side, weapons ready. When the Velcrid trucks rolled over the charges, Tajin triggered the explosion. The street erupted in fire and smoke. The trucks flipped over and crashed. Before the Velcrid soldiers could recover, Daeho's team hit them from above, firing down from the windows. It was over in less than a minute. The Velcrid were dead, and the humans had captured valuable supplies and weapons. They loaded everything into their own vehicles and disappeared back into the tunnels before enemy reinforcements arrived. Similar attacks were happening in every city across Earth. In London, resistance fighters ambushed a Velcrid command post. In New York, human soldiers captured an alien weapons depot. In Mumbai, engineers sabotaged the Velcrid landing pads, destroying 3 transport ships before they could take off. The Velcrid ground forces had no idea what to do. They were cut off from their fleet in orbit. Their communications were compromised. They were being attacked from every direction by an enemy that refused to stand and fight in the open. Many Velcrid soldiers simply tried to retreat to their landing ships, hoping to get off the planet before they were killed. But Admiral Jiwan wasn't going to let them escape that easily. She sent word to General Minho, who was coordinating the ground assault from his command bunker. "General, the orbital battle is almost over. We've destroyed or disabled most of their fleet. But I'm tracking several transport ships trying to evacuate their ground forces. I need your people to stop them before they can take off." Minho nodded. "Consider it done, Admiral." He sent orders to his troops around the world. Human forces converged on the Velcrid landing sites. They brought anti-aircraft missiles, heavy guns, and determination. When the Velcrid tried to escape, they found their landing pads surrounded by angry humans who had spent 3 weeks under alien occupation. The transport ships were torn apart before they could leave the atmosphere. By the time the sun rose over Earth the next morning, the battle was effectively over. In space, Admiral Jiwan's fleet had destroyed or captured every Velcrid warship. The few alien ships that survived were crippled and drifting. On the ground, most of the Velcrid soldiers were dead or had surrendered. The ones who surrendered were locked up in the same prison camps they had built for humans. Jiwan allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. Earth was free. But as she looked at the list of casualties on her screen, she felt her heart grow heavy. The Prometheus fleet had lost 3 dreadnoughts in the battle. Thousands of crew members were dead. On the ground, the fighting had killed even more people. Both soldiers and civilians caught in the crossfire. The victory had come at a terrible cost. President Hyun-sik addressed the planet later that day. His face appeared on every screen that still worked, broadcast from his bunker. He looked older than he had 3 weeks ago, and his voice was tired. "People of Earth," he said, "today we have driven the invaders from our world. We have proven that humanity cannot be conquered. But this fight is not over. The Velcrid Empire still exists. They have ships, armies, and resources spread across 12 star systems. When they learn what happened here, they will come back. And next time they'll bring even more ships." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he continued. "That's why we cannot wait for them to return. We must take the fight to them. We must make sure they never threaten Earth again. I know you're tired. I know you've lost friends and family. But I'm asking you to be strong a little longer, because if we stop now, everything we fought for will be lost." In the command bunker, General Minho turned to Dr. Yoonji. "Can we do it? Can we actually invade their empire?" Yoonji pulled up a holographic map of known space. It showed the 12 Velcrid systems scattered across several light years. "We have the ships now. We captured a lot of Velcrid technology in the battle, including their FTL drives. I can reverse engineer them and make them better. But it's going to take time. Months, maybe." "How many ships do we have?" Admiral Jiwan asked. She had joined the meeting by video link from the Indomitable. 12 operational dreadnoughts from the Prometheus fleet, Yoonji said. "Plus we can convert some civilian ships for military use. And we're building more in the asteroid shipyards. Give me 3 months and I can have you a fleet of 30 ships." Fleet Captain Sora, also watching by video, spoke up. 30 ships against an entire empire. Those aren't good odds. "We don't need to conquer them," Jiwan said thoughtfully. "We just need to break their will to fight. Show them that attacking Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. Hit their military targets, destroy their fleets, and force them to surrender." Minho nodded slowly. "It could work. We know how they fight now. We know their weaknesses, and they'll be afraid of us after what we did to their invasion force. President Hyunsik made his decision. Do it, prepare the fleet. We're taking the war to the Velcrid Empire. Dr. Unji smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to make their enemies very sorry they had ever heard of Earth. Then I'd better get to work. Because when we hit them, I want to hit them hard. In the ruins of Seoul, Captain Daeho stood with Lieutenant Yuna and Sergeant Taejin looking up at the sky. The orbital battle was over, but the war was just beginning. 3 months passed quickly on Earth. Every shipyard, factory, and laboratory worked day and night. Dr. Yoonji and her team took apart the captured Velcrid ships, learning their secrets. Human engineers improved on everything they found. The Velcrid FTL drives were powerful but inefficient. Human scientists made them faster and more reliable. The Velcrid weapons were strong but predictable. Human designers added new features that would surprise any enemy. Admiral Ji-won spent those months training her crews. The Prometheus fleet had grown. They now had 27 capital ships ready for combat. Some were the original dreadnoughts that had fought at Earth. Others were newly built, coming out of the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt. Every ship was crewed by people who had lost someone during the occupation. They were ready to make the Velcrid pay. Captain Daeho was given command of the ground assault forces. He now led 5,000 soldiers, all of them trained in special operations. They would be the ones who went planetside when the fleet attacked Velcrid worlds. Lieutenant Yuna was promoted and put in charge of electronic warfare for the entire fleet. Sergeant Taejin became the head of the Demolitions Corps, responsible for training other soldiers in explosives and sabotage. Fleet Captain Sora took command of the Retribution and 3 other dreadnoughts, forming a fast attack squadron. General Minho stayed on Earth to coordinate the defense of the home system, just in case the Velcrid sent more ships while the fleet was away. Finally, everything was ready. President Hyunsik came to the orbital shipyard to address the fleet before it left. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable with Admiral Ji-won, looking out at the assembled warships. I won't lie to you, Hyunsik said, his voice being broadcast to every ship. This is going to be dangerous. We're taking the fight to an empire that spans 12 star systems. We're going to be far from home, with no reinforcements and no retreat. Some of you won't come back. But what you're doing is necessary. We can't wait for the Velcrid to attack us again. We have to end this threat once and for all. He paused, looking at the determined faces around him. You're not fighting for conquest. You're fighting for survival, for freedom, for every person on Earth who lived under occupation for 3 weeks. Make them remember what happens when you attack humanity. Show them that we don't forgive and we don't forget. Good luck and come home safe. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Admiral Ji-won had chosen their first target carefully. The Calvex system was a major Velcrid military base, far from their capital but important to their fleet operations. Intelligence gathered from captured computers showed that 30 Velcrid warships were stationed there, along with shipyards and weapons factories. It took 3 weeks to reach Calvex. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, and immediately their sensors picked up the Velcrid defense fleet. The aliens had been alerted to the fall of Earth and they were on high alert. But they weren't expecting the humans to come to them. 32 ships, Jawan's tactical officer reported. They're moving to intercept. They'll reach us in 2 hours. Ji-won studied the tactical display. The Velcrid were doing exactly what she expected. They were forming up in a defensive wall, planning to meet the human fleet head-on. It was the same tactic they always used. Predictable, rigid, easy to counter. Captain Sora, Ji-won said into her communicator, take your squadron and circle around to their flank. Wait for my signal, then hit them from the side. The rest of the fleet will engage them from the front. Understood, Admiral, Sora replied. The 2 fleets met in the dark space between planets. The Velcrid opened fire first, launching missiles and energy beams at the approaching human ships. But the human vessels scattered, breaking formation and moving in unpredictable patterns. The Velcrid weapons hit empty space where the ships had been moments before. Then the human fleet returned fire. Railguns spat tungsten slugs at incredible speeds. Plasma lances carved through shields and armor. The Velcrid shields were strong, but the humans had learned exactly how to overwhelm them. Focus fire on one ship at a time. Hit it with everything until the shields collapsed, then move to the next target. The first Velcrid cruiser exploded 20 minutes into the battle. Then a second. Then a third. The aliens tried to adapt, but they were too slow. Their ships were powerful, but not agile. They couldn't match the human vessels for speed and maneuverability. That's when Sora's squadron struck from the side. 4 human dreadnoughts appeared behind the Velcrid formation and opened fire at point-blank range. 3 alien ships were destroyed before they even knew they were being attacked. The rest of the Velcrid fleet tried to turn to face this new threat, but that exposed their rear to Jiwan's main force. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, all 32 Velcrid ships were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had taken damage, but no ships were lost. Jiwan sent repair crews to patch up the wounded vessels while she prepared for the next phase. Captain Deho's ground forces launched in assault shuttles toward Calvex III, the main planet in the system. The Velcrid had military bases on the surface, along with weapons factories and training facilities. Deho's orders were simple: destroy everything of military value and capture any intelligence that could help the war effort. The assault was swift and brutal. Human soldiers hit the Velcrid bases like a hammer. They used everything they had learned fighting in Earth's tunnels and streets. The Velcrid soldiers on Calvex were tough and well-trained, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Humans didn't fight fair. They used ambushes, traps, and psychological warfare. Lieutenant Yuna hacked into the Velcrid computer networks and fed false information to their defenders. She made them think human forces were attacking from the north when they were really coming from the south. She shut down their anti-aircraft defenses at critical moments, allowing human aircraft to strike with impunity. Sergeant Taejian and his demolition teams planted explosives in the weapons factories and shipyards. When they detonated, the explosions could be seen from orbit. Millions of tons of war material went up in flames. Within 2 days, the human forces had achieved their objectives. They captured several high-ranking Velcrid officers and downloaded massive amounts of data from their computers. Then they retreated back to their ships and prepared to move to the next target. Far away in the Velcrid home system, Overlord Kreshitar sat in his throne room and listened to the reports with growing horror. The humans had attacked Calvex and won decisively. They had destroyed 32 ships and crippled the entire military base. And now, according to his scouts, the human fleet was heading toward the Threxus system. How is this possible? Kreshitar demanded. These humans were supposed to be primitive. Where did they get ships that can defeat our fleet? His military advisor, War Master Dexnol, stood before the throne with his head bowed. Overlord, it appears we severely underestimated them. They hid their true capabilities until we committed our forces. It was a trap, one we walked into blindly. Then we will crush them with superior numbers, Kreshitar declared. Send word to all our systems. I want every available ship to gather at Threxus. We'll meet the humans there with overwhelming force. They cannot defeat the full might of the Velcrid Empire. Dexnol hesitated. Overlord, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have proven they can— No. Kreshitar's voice echoed through the throne room. The Velcrid Empire does not negotiate with lesser species. We will destroy these humans and show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. Now go, gather our forces. I want the human fleet annihilated. Dexnol bowed and left the throne room. But as he walked through the corridors of the palace, he felt a cold fear in his chest. He had studied the reports from Calvex carefully. He had seen how the humans fought. They were clever, adaptable, and ruthless. And they were angry. The War Master had a terrible feeling that the Velcrid Empire had made a mistake they would not survive. Back in human space, Admiral Jiwan received intelligence about the Velcrid gathering at Threxus. Dr. Yunji, working from her laboratory ship, analyzed the data. They're massing everything they have, Yunji said. I'm reading at least 70 ships, maybe more, plus planetary defense platforms and shield generators. Threxus is one of their most fortified systems. Jiwan studied the tactical display. They think they can intimidate us with numbers. They still don't understand how we fight. Fleet Captain Sora joined the conversation. Admiral, we're outnumbered 3-1. Even with our advantages, this is going to be a hard fight. I know, Jiwan replied, but we can't back down now. If we retreat, they'll think we're weak. We need to hit them hard and show them that numbers don't matter when your tactics are outdated. She turned to Lieutenant Yuna. Can you get me access to their defensive network? Yuna smiled. I've been working on that since Calvex. I think I can blind their sensors for a few minutes when we arrive. Long enough for us to get into position. Then here's what we're going to do, Jiwan said. pulling up a holographic map of the Threxus system. We're going to make them think we're more afraid than we really are. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Threxus system and immediately saw what they were up against. 73 Velcrid warships hung in space around the main planet, arranged in defensive formations. Orbital weapons platforms covered every approach. Shield generators protected the planet's surface. It was the most heavily defended system the humans had ever seen. Admiral G1 stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and felt her heart race. This was the moment that would decide everything. Win here and the Velcrid would know fear. Lose and Earth would face the full fury of an angry empire. Lieutenant Yuna, are you ready? G1 asked. Yuna's fingers flew across her console. Deploying the quantum disruption mines around their star now. When they activate, it'll destabilize their sensor grid and defense network. We'll have maybe 5 minutes before they fix it. 5 minutes, G1 repeated. That'll have to be enough? All ships prepare for combat. Remember the plan. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to think. The Velcrid fleet detected the human ships and immediately moved to engage. Their commander, a veteran officer named Krexval, watched the tactical display with confidence. He had 73 ships against the humans' 27. The numbers were overwhelmingly in his favor. All vessels advance in formation, Krexval ordered. We'll crush them with superior firepower. But as his fleet moved forward, strange things started happening. Sensors began showing false readings. Communications between ships became garbled. The orbital defense platforms lost their targeting locks. Krexval stared at his screens in confusion. What's happening? Get me a status report. Before anyone could answer, the human fleet attacked. But they didn't come from the direction the Velcrid expected. Lieutenant Yuna's hacking had blinded the defense network just long enough for the human ships to split up and approach from 3 different angles. The Velcrid suddenly found themselves surrounded. Fleet Captain Sora led her squadron in a high-speed attack run past the Velcrid right flank. The Retribution and her sister ships fired everything they had. Railgun slugs tore through Velcrid shields. Plasma lances carved deep wounds in alien hulls. 3 Velcrid cruisers exploded in rapid succession. Admiral G1 brought the main fleet in from above, targeting the Velcrid command ships. The Indomitable's heavy guns spoke with thunder and fury. A Velcrid dreadnought, one of their most powerful warships, took a direct hit to its bridge. The ship went dark and began to drift. Krexval realized with horror that he had been outmaneuvered. The humans weren't fighting like they were outnumbered. They were fighting like they had already won. His ships tried to regroup, but every time they formed a defensive line, the humans would hit them from a different angle. It was chaos. All ships focus fire on the human flagship. Krexval ordered desperately. If we can take out their commander, maybe we can turn this around. But G1 had anticipated that move. As the Velcrid concentrated their fire on the Indomitable, the rest of the human fleet tore into their flanks unopposed. G1's ship took heavy damage, but its shields held long enough for repair crews to patch the worst of it. The battle raged for 9 hours. It was the longest and bloodiest fight of the war so far. Human ships traded broadsides with Velcrid cruisers at point-blank range. Explosions lit up the darkness like terrible stars. Debris from destroyed ships created deadly clouds of shrapnel. Captain Diho, watching from his assault ship, gritted his teeth as he saw one of the human dreadnoughts break apart under concentrated fire. Hundreds of his fellow humans died in that explosion, but he couldn't help them. His job was to wait for the orbital battle to turn in humanity's favor, then lead the assault on the planet below. Finally, after hours of brutal combat, the tide turned. The Velcrid had lost 41 ships. The survivors were damaged and scattered. Krexval's flagship was crippled, its engines destroyed. He tried to order a retreat, but with the quantum disruption field still active, his ships couldn't jump to hyperspace. They were trapped. Admiral G1 to Velcrid Commander, G1 broadcast on all frequencies. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting and we will destroy every ship in this system. Krexval looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead. His ship was dying. His fleet was broken. He had failed. We surrender, he said quietly. But G1 wasn't done. While her fleet secured the defeated Velcrid ships, she turned her attention to the planet below. Dr. Yunji had detected a critical flaw in the planetary shield generators. If they could take out the main power station, the entire defensive grid would collapse. Captain Diho, Jiwan said. The shields are about to come down. You'll have a narrow window to land your forces. Make it count, Diho grinned. Understood, Admiral. All assault teams prepare for drop. 3 of the surviving human dreadnoughts targeted the shield generator's power station with precision strikes. The massive structure exploded, and the planetary shields flickered and died. Immediately, hundreds of assault shuttles launched from the human fleet and dove toward the surface. Diho's shuttle took fire from anti-aircraft guns as it descended, but Lieutenant Yuna hacked the targeting systems from orbit, making the guns shoot at empty air. The shuttles landed near the major military installations and human soldiers poured out, ready for battle. The fighting on Threxus was intense, but short. The Velcrid defenders were demoralized after watching their fleet get destroyed. Many surrendered without a fight. Those who did resist found themselves up against soldiers who had learned to fight in the tunnels beneath Earth's cities. Sergeant Tajin's demolition teams moved through the military bases like ghosts, planting explosives and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Within 2 days, Threxus was under human control. But the victory had come at a cost. The human fleet had lost 3 dreadnoughts and over 2,000 crew members. On the ground, hundreds more soldiers had died in the assault. Admiral Jiwan stood in the ruins of the Velcrid Command Center on Threxus and felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. They had won, but the war wasn't over yet. The Velcrid still had their capital system and their leadership. And according to the intelligence they had captured, Overlord Kreshtar was gathering every remaining ship for a final battle. Back on Earth, President Hyunsuk received the reports from Threxis and made a decision. He recorded a message that would be broadcast throughout Velcrid space. People of the Velcrid Empire, Hyunsuk said, his face appearing on every screen the Velcrid used. Your leaders attacked my world without provocation. They enslaved our people. They killed our civilians. Now we have come to your space and we have shown you that humanity is not weak. We are not prey. We are not victims, he paused, letting his words sink in. We offer you one chance to end this war. Surrender unconditionally. Stand trial for your crimes. Dismantle your war machine. If you do this, the killing can stop. If you refuse, we will come to your capital system, and we will finish what you started. You have 72 hours to decide. On Velcros Prime, the Velcrid capital world, Overlord Kreshtar watched the human president's message with rage burning in his chest. He smashed his fist on the arm of his throne. Never. The Velcrid Empire does not surrender to lesser beings. Gather every ship we have left. We will make our stand at Velcros Prime. If the humans want to face the full might of our empire, then let them come. We will drown them in fire. But War Master Dexnall, standing beside the throne, saw things differently. He had read all the reports. He had seen what the humans could do. And he knew that if this war continued, the Velcrid Empire would be destroyed. Quietly, without telling the Overlord, Dexnall began making preparations to evacuate the civilian population of Velcros Prime. He couldn't stop the coming battle, but he could at least try to save innocent lives. The human fleet regrouped at Threxus and prepared for the final push. They had lost ships and people, but their resolve was stronger than ever. Admiral Jiwan gave a speech to her surviving crews. We're going to finish this, she said. One more battle. One more push. And then we go home. The Velcrid made the mistake of attacking Earth. Now we're going to make sure they never make that mistake again, for all those we lost, for everyone who suffered under occupation, for Earth. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for Velcros Prime. The final battle was coming, and the entire galaxy was watching to see who would win. When the human fleet arrived at the Velcrid capital system, they found Overlord Kreshtar waiting with over 120 warships. It was every vessel the Velcrid Empire had left, gathered for one last desperate defense of their homeworld. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. 2 fleets clashed in a fight that would determine the fate of both species. Ships burned, heroes died, and in the end humanity proved what it had known all along. They were not prey. They were predators. And when you attacked Earth, you paid the price. The Velcrid Empire fell. Overlord Kreshtar died in his flagship as it exploded around him. War Master Dexnall, who had tried to save civilians, surrendered on behalf of his people, and Admiral Jiwan, standing on the bridge of her damaged but victorious flagship, sent a message back to Earth. It's over. We won. The war had ended. Humanity had struck back, and the galaxy would never forget.